First of all, I want to say I'm very sorry I'm late. I was in the Middle East making a speech, and anyway, we got slightly delayed. So thank you very much for staying so late. I'm one of a number of commissioners on the Global Drug Commission, and most of them are ex-presidents. And anyway, so so I don't know how I got on, but I was. I found it fascinating, and it was wonderful to sit with these incredible people and really study this particular problem. Portugal's drug policy really answers many of what the Commissioners set out, having done a major study on what the world needed to do. And I think that what Portugal has showed is that decriminalisation does not necessarily result in increased drug use. And I think what we need to do is try to get the world to take on board a fact-based approach to the drug problem and not an emotional-based approach. And it's been wonderful that Portugal's been brave and done something that politicians in other countries have just not dared to do. I think enough is enough, and I think the war on drugs has been going on now for many years. I remember seeing pictures of President Nixon when I think it was he that launched the war on drugs, and equally the Vietnamese War was going on at the same time, and that was another dreadful policy. But the war on drugs has been proved to be a dreadful mistake. And on a worldwide basis, we must stop criminalising drug users. I mean, we're criminalising hundreds of thousands of people all over the world every year, and it's failed. It does not work. Governments should adopt legal regulation to undermine the criminal grip on drugs, and help and treatment must be offered to all drug users that want it, not prison. I mean, prison obviously doesn't work. We need to invest in our young people to keep them safe from drug harm. And alternative regimes like Portugal have seen a drop in HIV infection and a reduction in drug harms. And again, we urgently need to see that on a global basis. I wish I could speak your language. It's difficult speaking to people you're not sure whether they can understand you. Anyway, you can. Thank you. Somebody can. I will speak to you. Thank you. The Global Drugs Commission is looking to completely change the global approach to drug policy, and they want to do it based on hard evidence. The bad drugs policy literally affects hundreds of thousands of individuals and communities across the world, apart from the fact that it's actually costing economies in America and other places literally billions and billions of dollars, which Portugal is saving enormous amounts of money. You've got the massive increases in HIV worldwide, which is a direct result of stigmatizing drug users, and particularly injecting drug users. You've got increased crime, I think on a worldwide basis, between 50% and 80% of all break-ins, all break-ins to people's homes are related to drug users. And I'm delighted to hear that that those figures, I think, have dropped in Portugal quite dramatically. The Commission's looked at the evidence and has some very key aims. We look at the facts, we have an honest and open debate about drugs policy. Clearly the efforts to prohibit and to eradicate drug use have not worked, and we now urgently need to look at alternatives. We need to provide medical help to those who have problematic use, not turn them into criminals. And I mean, it could happen to any of us. It could happen to our brothers, to our sisters, to our children. It could happen to any of us. The Global Commission's recommendations and their principles are yet to be followed in the majority of countries in the world and by international bodies. Yet Portugal has already gone a long way to implementing many of them and have done extremely well on their progressive ideas. Portugal has ended the stigmatization and marginalization of drug users. Public health and human rights-based approach of the Portuguese drug policy is to be welcomed on a worldwide basis. And I think there's sort of two areas that everywhere I go in the world, people talk about Portugal. One is how it's tackled the drug problem and done so well in being forward-thinking and helped its people. And the other one actually has been on the clean energy policy, how you're now reducing the amount of money that you're sending out to the Middle East by your very forward-thinking clean energy policy. Two great policies that everybody talk about Portugal on a worldwide basis. The Global Commission encourages decriminalisation, and the Portuguese case is described in the report as the best example to follow. I mean, you've got Germany, you've got Switzerland with hard drugs, but Portugal is the best all-encompassing policy that the world can follow. Successes of drug policies should be measured by lower harms to the populations. Portugal witnessed the decrease in HIV and AIDS infection rates, and also the decrease in injecting drug use-related deaths. Incredibly important if you're that person who dies from injections, or you're that person who picks up HIV and then maybe dies from AIDS because of the policies of your government. Portugal's drug policy, including prevention programs, resulted in falling rates of drug use by Portugal's youth. Another incredibly important point for the rest of the world to see. Now, your dissuasion commissions was something that the Global Commission were fascinated by, and they are a fantastic, great individualized response which puts drug users at its center, allowing for partnership-based, tailored treatment responses. And if only the rest of the world were to follow Portugal, and obviously it's up to the Drug Commission to try to use Portugal as an example to try to get other countries to follow you. And I think, as I said earlier, drug-related break-ins have dramatically dropped in Portugal, and again, I believe will drop on a worldwide basis. So I'd like to conclude by saying that Portugal is the world's leader. Portugal should be proud of it. They're the world's leader in dealing with their drug problems. It's a shining example to be followed by other countries. Personally, I think on behalf of the Drug Commission, I think the Portuguese people should be congratulated for what they've achieved. I'm sure there's more that can be done, but you're leading the way in the world, and I think in years to come, other countries will follow, and wish they'd followed Portugal 50 years ago. Thank you very much.